Good morning. I'm Pam Stewart, and I often like to say that I'm a bit schizophrenic, but that may in fact be true today. My name tag says that I am from St. Johns County, Florida, where I am through tomorrow, and your program says that I am the Chancellor for K-12 Education for the state of Florida, because on Monday I transition to that position. This morning at breakfast, you heard Governor Bush mention that he was presenting the broccoli and force-feeding us the broccoli. And I would submit to you that this session may be more of the meat and potatoes. And so those of you that selected to come to this session are, in fact, here to get the meat and potatoes of education as we explore career and college readiness. What are we about in K-12 education if it is not to prepare students for the next step? And I think too often we are focused on getting them out and not on what we're getting them ready for. You'll see in the program that 1/3 of the nation's 12th graders graduate with the skills necessary to succeed either in college or in their career choice. And I think that we often give them a very nice sheet of paper that is a ticket to nowhere, because it has prepared them for to do very little in this world, especially in our global environment now. Sometimes we talk about in education about the percentage of students that attend college. That's sort of our getting them ready. And we may even talk about what to do to increase those numbers, increase the percentage of students attending college, because we think that kind of looks good for our schools. But rarely do we talk about the students that we send there that end up having to be remediated. If you were here for the last session, you heard Dr. Guthrie suggest that school districts be charged for the cost of remediating students who go to college and are not ready. Dr. Scandera in the same session pushed back just a little bit, suggesting that colleges pay back the school districts for the unprepared teachers who come and teach in the school districts. And I think there probably is a little bit of truth in both of those points. And I think in both arenas, we have to do a better job. You'll also see in the program that there are some statistics related to Florida and the AP exam passing rates in Florida from 1991 to 2010. And that's pretty dramatic. It looks like it's just under 20,000 and up to about 110,000 in 2010. I share with you that that rise did not happen because educators sat around and talked about, isn't it nice that we're sending our students on their way, ready for the next step, and that be the end of it. It happened in Florida. That dramatic increase happened in Florida because of courageous things that policymakers and lawmakers chose to do, such as paying for PSAT, additional funding for AP, IB, and ACE participation. Also for including in school grading formula the participation and the performance of students on AP, IB, ACE, dual enrollment, and industry certification examinations. It is, in fact, those kinds of dramatic steps that can make a huge difference in preparing students for college. Many states are continuing to increase graduation requirements, particularly in the area of math, where we find most of our college remediation to occur. And that's another bold step when states take that on as one step toward college readiness. This session is designed to help states explore some of the initiatives that other states have already implemented surrounding college readiness. It's an important topic that is one that's been much talked about, and yet very few states have actually taken steps toward improving that. These states here today have taken bold steps to bring those beliefs about access for all into reality. This is your chance to hear from the panelists and to ask any questions that you have that could assist you as you move forward in any efforts you have toward better preparing students for college and career. With us today, there are 3 distinguished panelists whose bios you have in your program. First is John Gubera, Chief Accountability Officer with the Indiana State Department of Education. Welcome to John Gubera. Next is Lizette Gonzales Reynolds, Deputy Commissioner of Policy and Programs in the state of Texas. And last but not least is Gail Manchin, West Virginia Board of Education member and former First Lady of West Virginia. Each panelist is going to take a few minutes to talk about what initiatives they have done within their state, and then following that, we'll provide you an opportunity to ask any questions that you may have of any or all of our panelists. We'll ask that you come to the microphone here in the center aisle to ask your question so that all can hear your question. And then we'll provide the panelists another opportunity to kind of wrap up with anything that they think is burning that you have to know as you move forward with these initiatives. And John.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I got to say my adrenaline's pretty high, starting with Governor Bush's speech this morning. The hair stood up several times in there, and because it's exciting to know that there's other folks out there that are just as excited about what we're doing in Indiana, and other folks are doing things that we're able to draw from and advance. So I'm really excited, and I probably will speak too quickly, but that's just because I'm really excited. What is Indiana doing to prepare students for colleges and careers? We're cross-policinating, which of course is a made-up word. I actually came up with this because working with Commissioner Lubbers last year, she often would say there's a lot of good cross-pollination going on between agencies and folks out there on germinating some really good ideas. I said that's right, but what we really need to do is make sure we cross-policinate, so we actually turn these into policies that will affect student improvement. So it's a brand new made-up word. In the spirit of Shakespeare, I'd ask you guys to use it often, so maybe then it becomes part of the vernacular. So in the cross-policinating, the key to it, I think, is working with all the players. So the legislature, the governor's office, the Indiana Commission for Higher Education, the Indiana Department of Education, and then our P20 Council, which we call the Education Roundtable, along with all those external educational stakeholders that have the ears of all those folks I just mentioned. The other piece of this, as I go through a number of items here, the target here is policymakers and policy wonks. Some of the things that we have, obviously, were ideas that we borrowed from states such as Florida. We have ideas we borrowed from Ohio. We have ideas we borrowed from Texas. The areas I'm going to focus on are the ones where I think we've taken some of those ideas and then maybe made them more of our own or added some pieces to that. I think it makes it more robust. So my goal is hopefully there'll be some things you can take away from this presentation with you. Additionally, of course, feel free to contact me to dig deeper into these. The other piece, the reason why I'm so excited this morning, is that concept I just mentioned, of course, is called federalism. So when Governor Bush mentioned federalism, I really got excited, and I can have people verify, because I printed my notes out last night. I literally have, after that piece here, love federalism, right? Love federalism. So I was excited about that, and he's right. I mean, the whole idea is that we have everyone out there doing experiments, and hopefully you're able to draw from those experiments the successes and maybe challenges, and then work through these. A lot of these policies I'm going to talk about, I had very long conversations with folks in other states about how they're able to make that happen. Where they admitted they fell short, and then it gave me opportunity as we worked with folks, say, hey, how can we not fall short in that area and maybe get over that hump? So the first piece I want to talk about is our cross-pollinating item 1, which would be aligning high school grad requirements with college admissions. According to Achieve, Indiana is one of just 7 states, I believe, in the country that now our default diploma is a college and career-ready diploma. That started effective this year. This year's graduates, the 2011, were required, the default was a Core 40 diploma. Now the Core 40 diploma was first passed by the legislature in 2005, so it was slowly implemented over time so everyone could adjust to it. But this past graduating class was the first one that the default was a Core 40. I put up some of the specifics of the Core 40. It's probably not surprising to most. 4 years of English, we have 3 years of math. Highlighted, of course, is the Algebra 2, because we know, according to research, that's the gateway course for math success as folks move forward. We also have the Core 40 with Academic Honors Diploma and the Core 40 with Technical Honors Diplomas. I'll speak a little bit more about those here shortly. So, in sum, the general diplomas are gone, and rigorous curriculum for all is here. And that's the goal. We have our data, just to give you a quick insight on where we're at in terms of achieving where we want to be. Our 2010 results would be the last year that students were allowed to have the general diploma. So statewide, we had about 30% of students with the honors diploma. That'd be academic or technical. Then we had about 48% with the Core 40. And then we had about 23% with the general or waiver. And of that 23%, around 7% had a waiver diploma. So right now our collection window is open for schools to report their 2011 graduates. As soon as we have that, by November, we're anxious to see the results of that. The expectation, obviously, is that we'll have no general diplomas. And of course, the waiver is still possible, and the key is to see just how many students or schools transferred some of these generals to waivers, and then address that appropriately if that number is too high. Now, here's part of the cross-pollinating, if you will. So our Indiana's public four-year universities require a Core 40 diploma for admissions. And I have an asterisk by that because that's what they're supposed to be doing. They do allow some kids that don't have Core 40 in, but it's based on, again, the full experience of a student. There might be some that are still viable candidates. But the general rule of thumb is that they only allow those with the Core 40. Now, our flagship universities, such as IU Bloomington and Purdue West Lafayette, and now and Ball State's moving this direction, only take candidates with the academic honors diploma. Now, both of these policies were initiated by the Indiana Commission for Higher Education back in 2007 as part of their strategic plan called Reaching Higher. So the colleges have been articulating this to students since about 2007, letting them know, hey, those of you in high school right now, the Core 40 is the expectation for you when you graduate in 2011. Those students on the academic honors track are not on it, but you have your sights set on our flagships. You better get on board with the expectations that we expect you to have an academic honors diploma. Another key piece of this that the Commission does is called our High School Feedback Report. Maybe some of you have heard of it. We've had a lot of calls about it. It's a remediation report by diploma type for kids that go to every public university, and it's a report about the feeder schools. So School X sends kids to all the different universities, and then it gives them a report back saying how many of those kids by diploma type needed remediation in math or English or both. So it's a very valuable tool that people really appreciate. Having said that, too, I want to make this comment. We know that the reason why we went to the Core 40 is we know that students that have this rigorous high school experience, it's probably the best predictor of student outcome, positive student outcomes in college and careers. So the feedback report's been valuable because it actually lets us know we have a couple kids that get the honors diploma that actually need remediation, right? And so that's something to really target and ask why. Right now, the Core 40 students, the feedback we have, information we have, we have, as I asked one of the policy guys at the Commission, I text him, I go, how many of our Core 40 actually need remediation? He goes, too many, right? So that's another piece that allows us to look at it and say, okay, let's make sure we're not rubber stamping these diplomas, make sure that there's some teeth behind them, which is, as we move forward here, and I'm going to talk about acceleration mechanisms, that's why it's important that you also have some other mechanisms in place that measure student preparedness. And this will get into AP, IB, and dual credit and industry certifications. I can't go back on the slide, but I wanted to go back. But I want to say on that last slide, but it's really important. No, it's what we're building are school and student incentives. I think everyone needs to understand, and why I try and let folks know who will listen to me at least. We can't ask schools to do one thing and measure them one way and have students do it something else and measure them differently. We need to link their incentives together as much as possible because they are a partnership. They both need to be working together, and they both have the same goals. As much as you can link them together, you're going to generate much more success. So on these next few slides, what I'm going to do is go over each of our 4 components of our college and career readiness, which is now part of our new state accountability model. Caveat, State Board has not voted on it yet, but hopefully they won't change any of it this time. And each of these, I'm going to go over the school incentives and the, I do need to go back once, and the student incentives, and try and highlight. What you'll see is the ones in black, it's a shared incentive for both. And the ones in red would be, I'd say, more indicative of an incentive for that student or for the school. So for students on AP exams, it's part of the pathway to receive the honors diploma. They have to take 2 courses and take 2 exams as a choice. They could do IB or dual credit or something, or industry certification for a technical honors diploma, but it is a pathway for them, so there's an incentive for them to take these courses. Also, our honors diploma students receive 100% of our state financial aid. If you don't receive the honors diploma, if you receive less than that, you get 80% of the state financial aid. The state pays for all math and science exams. Jobs for the Future came out, recently with, what you measure is what gets done. I'd say, yeah, what you measure and what you fund gets done, right? So the state has stayed committed to paying for the math and science exams, and the state also pays for all free and reduced lunch students' AP exams. Now, of course, this can become pricey, very expensive quickly, so something folks may want to consider that's been tossed around in our state is, well, maybe we have the students pay a portion of these exams. It's also the concept of having some skin in the game, is a term that people use. The other piece here I want to talk about, and I'll go ahead and actually move to the next one, is the public universities' college credit. The public universities now grant college credit for all scores of 3 and higher. This is any AP exam, of the 33 or 34 exams, all of our public universities must give credit. And they must give credit towards the degree, not what I call the superfluous credit, the one that really doesn't count towards any work. Now, this obviously was a major work. The universities obviously weren't always happy with this. But it took a lot of effort working with them, and that was the big reason why I went over to the commission last year, was to help implement this policy. Now, of course, in there's wiggle room. If a student's majoring in that certain content area, they can allow a higher score threshold. However, they still then have to grant that student credit towards their degree, so it fulfills some of those elective credits. Our schools receive $900 for each academic honors diploma, so there's a pecuniary interest for them right there. The other piece that we added was the state recognition event for what I call our 25% plus schools. So Dr. Bennett's had in place for 3 years now, is when he came into office, the 90-25-90 state goals. The 25 piece is that we want 25% of our students to graduate having passed, not just taken, passed an AP exam or IB exam or earned dual credit. And so what we've been doing now is a model that we implemented is we do the, College Board's been doing this for a while. We just took their concept and built it at the school level. We've been publishing a statewide school level report on the percent of high school graduates that passed, which is a score of 3 or higher, an AP exam. And we have that data back to 2006. And we drew the cut there at 25%. And so what we've been doing the last couple of years, we've had this state recognition in Indianapolis where all of our schools that are at that 25% threshold or higher, along with our schools that have shown the greatest growth towards that mark of 25%, we bring them down to Indianapolis and we have a big celebration for them, give them plaques that they all then go hang in their school. And at that celebration is the Superintendent Bennett. He gives a speech and hands them out. Then Commissioner Teresa Lubbers is there. And then, of course, Governor Daniels is there. So again, it would represent that cross-policy-nating that I'm talking about, where we came together to work on policies that bridged some of the gaps there. At the same time, then everyone involved should be part of the recognition, too. It's a very popular program. We get TV and print coverage of it. Every school in the state wants to be at that ceremony. The other piece I had down there, which is a school level incentive, is that AP is now in our state level accountability model, which I'll get to a little bit later. International Baccalaureate, we also have that in there. The difference you will see is that the state does not pay for those exams yet. We don't have the statute around articulating credit. It's still up to the universities. Of course, then those are both policies that people are considering. Do we match the IB with the AP policies? Again, the same incentives for schools, the $900 per AHD graduate, and it's in the accountability model. Now, our college credit-bearing courses are our dual credit courses. Again, the students receive 100% of state financial aid if they receive this award. The key policy I want to talk about briefly is now our dual credit courses, those courses taught in the high school setting, where students receive both high school and college credit, are capped at $25 per credit hour. Previously, they were as high as $300, $400 for a course. What happened in the last session is the legislature gave the commission authority to cap the cost of these four priority dual credit courses. Now, I'd be happy to get in the weeds on this with anyone later on, but I want to give one piece of this because I think this is unique. We have this Indiana Dual Credit Advisory Board that is chaired by Tony and Teresa, the superintendent and the commissioner, and on that are representatives from the universities, high schools, and other educational stakeholders. What they decided is that, we want to get away from the shopping cart approach for dual credit and really channel our scarce resources to what we call priority dual credit courses. These are actually all courses that are in our core transfer library, which is the other piece on the bottom there. And the courses in the core transfer library the commission's been working on for 4 years, if they're in there, then they're guaranteed transfer across our public universities. So they decided, hey, let's incent kids to take those courses we know that actually count. And so they narrowed the gap on these priority courses, published that, and then the commission, after we worked, I know because I was there, after we worked with our universities and finding a price point that they could bear, and I was laughing because I was talking to one of the chairman of the Ed committee. We were saying we had some legislators that want it all for free, and we said, please don't do that. Our universities can't go from a $300 price model to zero. We worked with them to find this price point of $25 per credit hour. This saves parents and students thousands and thousands of dollars. We also now have industry certifications in our accountability model. The industry certifications is part of the pathway to receive that technical honors diploma. And again, THD students also receive 100% of the state financial aid. Here again, industry certifications is part of our new accountability model, and I want to get into that quickly. So our new accountability model, our A through F model, grade in schools, A through F, it's not a new idea, other folks are doing it. A piece I want to talk about, again, our 90-25-90 aligns to the state goals that Dr. Bennett's had in place since 2009. We want 90% of our kids to pass our state assessments in K-8, and then our ECA assessments, intercourse assessments in 12th grade, or in high school. And we want 25% of our kids to pass AP, IB, or earn dual credit, and the 90% to graduate. I'm going to talk about our high school model briefly. There's 4 components. Our 2 ECAs are in there, and then our graduation rate and our college and career readiness. I'm just going to talk about those 2. So our college career readiness are our 25% goal. In that, let me just explain the equation. You have 4 possibilities to score in the numerator, and then everyone that graduates is in the denominator. So any kid that passes an AP exam with 3 or higher would count in your numerator, or they pass an IB exam, or they earn dual credit, or they received an industry certification. Our principals love this. This targets all the kids they're supposed to be serving, targets the idea of college and career ready. And these 4 indicators are all strong indicators of students having success beyond simply high school. You take that, you divide it by the graduates, and it spits out a score that lands on our scale. So if schools are already at our state goal of 25%, they plot for an A on this piece of the 4-part component for the model, and then it scales down accordingly. The graduation rate, we want 90% of students graduating. So you start with your base rate again, we look at your cohort grad rate, and again scales down, starting with 90% at the state goal of A and then scales down. Now the other piece I want to add here is we also have what we call bonuses and a penalty here. Getting back to the diploma type I had mentioned. So we know that our AAHD kids are much more successful in college and careers. So we have a bonus in there that if you have a significant proportion of your kids receiving that honors diploma, we bump up your grade, your base grade here by half a grade. The other piece of this, and I mentioned at the outset, again, this is, I think, really doing a nice job of aligning our policies with expectations. If you have a significant proportion of your students receiving the waiver or general, and the general's gone now, or the waiver diploma, we're going to reduce your graduation rate score by a letter grade. Again, to incent them to get away from that practice of just granting waivers because it might be too difficult for this student to achieve the diploma. And we know they actually need the diploma to be successful beyond high school. And the last piece there, we have a bonus for a 5-year grad rate because we do have a number of schools that have a population where students don't graduate on time, right? Well, they still need a diploma. And so if you can get a significant proportion of them to graduate by the 5th year, again, they need that diploma, we give you a bonus there too. Last thing I want to go over briefly are policies around opening up greater access and awareness for college and career for all. The state funds all PSAT exams for 10th graders. 2007, we had about 27% of PSAT students taking PSAT. 2010, it was up to 73%. So again, the funding gets, you'll get what's done with funding and incentives, right? The other piece, I'm actually going to do these in reverse order. I'm going to talk about Mitch Daniels' early college scholarship, but I actually want to talk about our financial aid because it's going to come through financial aid. So Indiana has probably one of the most generous need-based financial aid programs in the country. And I tip my hat to the legislature because even during the recession in the previous biennial budget, so 2 budgets ago, everything got cut except state financial aid. They actually put more money into it during the only piece in the whole budget that got more money. In this last session, again, where everyone was basically flatlined, they put more money into it again. Well, of course, it makes sense. If we're asking more kids to go to college, we need to make it possible so they can actually pay for college. And so our legislature has stood by this and said, in terms of priority funding, state aid is number 1 for colleges. We also have Learn More Indiana, supported by the College Access Challenge Grant, that gets out the word to all schools and students about the need to go to college and pursue careers. And then I want to jump back to the Mitch Daniels Early College Scholarship. So this was just passed. Students that complete the Core 40, all the requirements by the time, or academic honors by the time they're in 11th grade, they can graduate high school and go on to college. And if they go to an Indiana college, public, private, or proprietary, after 5 months of graduation, the state cuts that college a $4,000 one-time check. That goes straight to tuition and all that. If there's any money left over from the tuition, it actually goes back to the student to do as they please with. But it's a one-time bonus. And we're going to start, obviously this is brand new. We have a couple kids that already applied for it, and we expect those numbers to keep growing. Again, giving students opportunities to excel at the level that's appropriate to them. Governor Bush mentioned this before. If students are ready to move on, why not let them? And the last piece we're doing, we are piloting the ACT and ACT suite of assessments and the College Board or SAT suite of assessments. We have a very strong interest in using these in a much larger scale in our state. And so we're having some schools, lack of a better term, play with them right now, and then see where we want to move with that. Finally, I wouldn't write this down if there's nothing genius about this. If you really believe colleges or students need to be college and career ready, then it's pretty simple. Line up your systems and policies around that, and then you'll achieve some really great results.
Great, thank you, John. Next, we have Lizette Gonzales Reynolds from Texas. Lizette.
Good morning. So I'm glad John mentioned Achieve because there is something that I would like to mention about Texas, and given kind of the headlines and stuff about Texas and the college and career readiness, Common Core, and all that kind of stuff, I think it's interesting to mention that Texas remains the only state that has implemented all 5 of the college and career readiness policies identified by Achieve as most critical towards getting all your kids college and career ready. And so part of that is why, Texas is at the crossroads where it is, because we've really been establishing a policy landscape for college and career readiness since 1995 under Governor Bush. I have to laugh sometimes when I see the report about the Casey Foundation saying, well, every kid needs to be able to read, to be reading on 3rd grade level by the time they leave 3rd grade. Well, that was something that the Governor George Bush that I worked for had established back then, and basically created an assessment and accountability system in Texas around that. So as the policy landscape, has been created, he emphasized a lot on reading and math. We saw that with NCLB, so we've seen that kind of scaled out at the national level. But what I want to mention, though, is really in 2006 is when the Texas legislature under Governor Perry decided that college and career readiness was going to be the goal for every student in the state of Texas. And so the legislation started being put into play. So I like to say, well, we were kind of college and career ready before college and career readiness was cool. Because honestly, in 2006 is when we established that goal. We also established a lot of the policies that really go towards kind of education reform, like pay for performance, and grant programs around that. And then really move towards requiring a 4x4 curriculum where Algebra 2 and English 3 are really the ultimate measurement for determination of college and career readiness. In 2007, we established our end-of-course exams. And also in 2007, we also brought together groups between K-12 and higher education to develop the college and career readiness standards in all the 4 content areas in our curriculum framework in Texas, which is called the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. Those were formally adopted in 2008 by the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and then the State Board of Education proceeded to incorporate them into our TEKS for every content area. So first we did English Language Arts, then we did math, science, and social studies, and we also did career and technology education. Then in 2009, the Texas legislature, again given with the goal of college and career readiness for every student, passed House Bill 3, which is really our latest signature piece of legislation in the state that really establishes a whole new accountability and assessment system that's aligned around college and career readiness. We actually are going to incorporate measurements of college and career readiness in these exams that aren't necessarily high stakes in the sense that we'll be able to figure out where the kids' gaps lie, but really to set that goal and establish our whole accountability and assessment system backwards from that goal. We also want to measure student success more fairly. A lot of criticisms that you'll hear about NCLB and about assessment systems is that they're so high stakes that kids can't kids drop out, or they don't get recognized for their the other things that they accomplish in their educational careers. And so House Bill 3 established designations so that we can really figure out, okay, a kid that has that's really excelled in the fine arts, in choir and band, added that and schools that really kind of set the framework for promoting fine arts in that school get credit in the accountability system for really kind of bringing out the whole child among their student body, but yet never falter behind the goal of college and career readiness. We plan to fully implement the system starting spring of 2012. So we've already got our curriculum standards. We have all our professional development around those curriculum standards and college and career readiness. We have an assessment system that's coming online this coming spring, and then we should have the full scale accountability in how districts are actually going to be rated by the 12-13 school year. So, it's kind of been a whirlwind, really trying to get all these pieces into play. And I know that we've been talking with states that really it's not about us being anti-Common Core, because for a lot of states that is the best way for them to accomplish what they need to accomplish, and really kind of building their systems around that. So what it's about, though, is recognizing that we've already established that, and now we're moving forward, and so that we can really support. I think we had some significant grant programs. We don't have as much anymore. We still have AP, which was one of the programs I was going to talk about, which really is kind of like one of our oldest college prep programs really in the state. We've had it since 1993. and to pay for exams, test subsidies for kids to take the AP, and we've seen a great increase in the number of kids taking the test. But it's not just about grant programs, because it's really about kids feeling that they actually can take the AP exam and be successful. So really that's kind of where we're coming from when it comes to getting things together and really trying to figure out how we can support other states in trying to figure out what is the professional development that needs to go around, what is algebra readiness. We put a lot of time and effort into determining what algebra readiness really is, because these kids have to get ready for the end of course exams in their high school years. So really kind of wanted to leave it that, really more food for thought, so that we can, maybe y'all can ask questions that we can provide. Again, I'm really interested in hearing more about the core 40, particularly around how y'all measure the schools. I think that rating is really very exciting because of the goals that you set forth. And obviously graduation rates is something that we're all going to be struggling with as states. And so it's always good. And then I've always heard Mrs. Manchin, if I can call you that, Gail, talk at SRAB about all the great work that West Virginia has done with providing their kids with a well-rounded education in career and technology. So we're really moving, we're still learning from everyone, and we hope that we can help other states learn from us, because we're now ready, set, go. And so, if y'all have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So.
Great, thank you very much, Lizette. We've heard both John and Lizette talk about borrowing from other states, and that's what this session is all about. And again, last but not least, is Gail Manchin from West Virginia.
Thank you. Yes, and what I'm going to talk about, we have, I think, done some remarkable things in West Virginia and need to do a lot more. But what I want to talk about specifically today is the AP program and what we have done in West Virginia and how that affects policy. And it is around partnerships. And so while you could take that model and say, well, then you could replicate it in many different high school redesign and many things that we are looking and doing in West Virginia. But I want to deal specifically with the AP program, because I think sometimes to look at one program, you can sort of get the bigger picture of how that could be replicated in other arenas. In the state of West Virginia, in addition to the State Board of Education and the West Virginia Department of Education, we have a West Virginia Center for Professional Development, which was created several years ago under Governor Gaston Caperton. We also have a Department of Secretary of Education and the Arts, and right now the Secretary is Kay Goodwin. That office was also created under Governor Gaston Caperton. Now, real briefly, I will tell you that those two entities were created because there was not always a good understanding or working relationship with the governor's office and the Department of Education. I don't know if other states have this. It's very dependent upon how your state board is selected, whether they are appointed by the governor, whether they are elected, whether there is a combination of both, and then how the state superintendent, whether he is elected, appointed by the governor, or hired by the state board. In our state, the members are appointed by the governor for terms of 9 years, pretty long. And they hire the state superintendent. So I will tell you that in the state of West Virginia, the state superintendent's loyalty and attention is to the state board, not always to the governor's office or the executive branch. And working in partnership is so very, very important. So I mention these two entities because in West Virginia, the Center for Professional Development, that we refer to as CPD, educators use a lot of acronyms, but CPD is responsible for the AP program and over the years has been responsible. Unfortunately, without monitoring and looking very close at what's going on, you don't realize whether the quality of your program is growing, diminishing, and if everyone's not on board, again, if you're not working in partnership with your superintendents, your principals, and everybody's not aligned on the same page with the same message, you really don't know where your program is going. What we found is that across our state, we had a great deal of variability in our AP courses. And so under sort of a new leadership at our Center for Professional Development, they started paying very close attention to not only the structure of the professional development, but also heightening the awareness and making sure that everyone was on the same page as to what an AP course really looked like. And so our CPD, our Center for Professional Development, directs the AP program. They provide all of the professional development for not only the teachers, but for the administrators and for the AP coordinators. They administer the fee waiver program. They are implementing the model AP school project. They are actually 1 year into this project, so they are collecting data for evaluation, and that evaluation is now in progress. So we look at where we have come, where we continue to need to go, and what success we have seen that we will need to replicate. And then we are implementing the Science and Math Success, which is a grant-funded project that will support additional professional development for AP teachers in the science and math arena. We are providing funding for additional review sessions for our students, as well as more resources for our students, and then also funding to support AP mock exams for students, and funding for College Board readers to read the mock exams and provide feedback. And I will tell you, one of the interesting elements that has come out of this is that once AP teachers become readers, how much they feel that enhances their ability as AP teachers. So that was kind of a success story that came out of providing this funding to create more AP readers, and then finding that that in itself becomes part of the professional development. And also the Center for Professional Development hosts the AP Scholar Dinner for students passing 3 or more AP exams prior to their senior year. Now, one of the other things that the Center for Professional Development did was create a West Virginia AP leadership team. And what they did then, in order to, again, more bring together this understanding, is that we have members of the West Virginia State Board, we have members of the Department of Education, we have members from the Higher Education Policy Commission, we have principals, superintendents, and we have an AP student, as well as community and business leaders, all as a part of this leadership team, overseeing and monitoring what is going on and how we are growing our AP program. So one of the things that this AP leadership team did was they went through a review of the policies and the data that we had pertaining to AP, and then from that data, from studying the policy, we adopted a strategic plan with both short-term and long-term goals, very doable. So the short-term goals, which are, we're looking at 2014, was to increase by 25% the number of students graduating taking AP courses. We also wanted to increase the performance of success on the test, so we're looking at increasing the performance by 15% of the graduation class scoring 3 or higher by 2014. Now, and also to close the equity and excellence gap for our minority or African American students by 2014. And that is something I would just mention very briefly, that we find you start that in middle school. You start making parents more aware of what AP courses are, how critical it is for all students to look at the viability, and then to provide mentoring, modeling, tutoring in your after-school programs, your summer enrichment programs that enable some of these at-risk students, students that have not had the opportunities that other students have had, to build on that so that by high school they will be more prepared. And Betty, you know, it's not one thing to just say to a 8th or 9th grader, oh, you need to take an AP course, we need to close our equity gap here, when then the students don't succeed. If you're not going to support them with resources and the help that they need to make them realize their capabilities, and that in fact many more of our students could and should be taking AP courses, taking the test and scoring 3 or better. We have a great sheet sort of showing the results of what has been happening that did not make the slide presentation, but it is on the website, and I would encourage you to go look and see the gains that we are making in West Virginia by paying closer attention. Then our long-term goals for 2018 is to increase participation by 40% of our graduating class, and to increase the performance on test 3 or higher by 25%. So, and we built that strategic plan. As I said to you earlier, we looked at our policies, we looked at the data we have, and so in our policy, we have defined that districts in West Virginia are required to offer at least 4 AP courses in the core academic area. They can offer more, but they have to offer at least 4, and that our public institutions around West Virginia are required to grant credit or placement for scores of 3 or higher. Now, the problem came in, and one of the reasons that we have really closed our ranks and created this much tighter partnership is that unfortunately, due to lack of knowledge around our state, there were schools that were putting out that there were AP classes on the roster. Students were taking these AP classes, may or may not be taking the test, but when they went for college admittance and tried to get credit, found out that no, the class was not, had not been granted certification by the college board. Their teachers had not received the training that they are required to have, and therefore that class did not count. Now, understandably, there were parents and families upset out there, but again, if there's not a close monitoring over what is going on, and you don't have this tight partnership between all the entities, these things can happen. You know, an AP teacher leaves the school and goes somewhere else, and another teacher steps into this AP classroom thinking, oh, sure, I can teach that course, not realizing what was being expected of that person. So it very important that there's very close monitoring on the professional development, and that everything is meeting. And so I will say to you that what CPD provides, what they have to have is this summer institute training. Every AP teacher has to take that. Then every 3 years they have to come back for a sort of a refresher on that. Principals have to take every 2 years an orientation, understanding of the AP course, and the AP coordinators have to take training every 2 years. This is critical. Every syllabus for an AB course has to be sent to the college board and have their approval before that course. So only until all those I's are dotted and T's are crossed are then colleges required to offer the recommendation. What we found, as we have raised the bar for teachers and principals and coordinators and the students in knowing that they are getting the best, highest quality AP course available, the students taking the test, not only are more students taking courses, more students are taking the test, and more students are receiving a grade of 3 and higher. So it just reiterates what has been said in some of the other sessions. If you raise the standards and you hold people to those standards, everyone rises to the occasion. The teachers are doing a better job, the syllabi on these courses are better, and students are engaged in learning. And one of the interesting things that I think research shows us, and why we believe that AP courses and really pushing and raising the bar and encouraging our students to access these courses are that if a student scores 3 or higher in an AP course, they are competitive with any student in the world in that course. Research has proven this. So when our students take science and math courses and score 3 or higher on those tests, they are competitive globally. And that's what at the end of the day we want. We want our students to be competitive, not only with the students in their school, state, or the nation, but globally. And AP courses do that. And we believe that it raises the standard all across the board. And certainly we are closing the equity gap, which shows that all students have the right to have access to these courses. They just many times require some support and resources to prepare them so that when they take these courses, they will be ready for them. I will tell you that just for a little bit of data in what has happened since we have come up with this strategic, so our partners are this. I keep talking about our partnership, but we have the Department of Education, the State Board, the Center for Professional Development, the Secretary of Arts and Education, and the Higher Education Policy Commission, along with certainly one of the major partner that pulls it all together is the College Board. And their support in creating this team in West Virginia has been critical. But there again, the College Board, there was the benchmark. And if West Virginia could rise to this level, then we would have this team in this partnership that would move our state forward. And so that is what we've done. But in 2011, in the West Virginia public schools, there was a 13.5% increase in the number of students that took the AP exams. There were a 14% increase in the number of exams taken, which meant more students taking the courses we're taking, and a 22% increase in the number of exams scoring 3 or higher. So obviously the proof is in the pudding in terms of what the evidence shows what happened. Now, we have a policy, an education policy, and this is for our legislators, policy 2510, which pretty much dictates education in West Virginia. And so we looked at that at 2510 and approved or encouraged some changes to be made, which have been approved. One of them is that it is recommended that all professional pathway students will complete at least one AP course with the corresponding examination, and that a minimum of 4 college AP courses, at least one from each core content area, or the IB program, which we talked about earlier, the International Baccalaureate, must be offered annually, that any approved AP or IB course may substitute for a content-related graduation requirement, but that is that those students are certainly encouraged that they must take the AP exam for that to occur. And again, as I said, in our policy we have put that all courses must be approved by the College Board. And in order to do that, we also had put into the policy about the requirements, the Summer Institute, coming back every 3 years for a refresher, that principals will be trained, and also the AP coordinators. And all of this information will be done by the Center for Professional Development, and they will meet annually at the West Virginia Counselors, where all this information is distributed out. So what has happened is that now we have everybody on board in a much better fashion. Principals really understanding what advanced placement courses are, what they mean, and what it means to their school for them to do it and do it correctly. It also has encouraged our parents that realize the validity. I will say one thing about dual credit, and I think this varies from state to state. There is not that validity around many of our dual credit courses that we have around our AP. We have found many students that have taken dual credit courses, and maybe just in West Virginia, I can't speak for other states, they get to college and that next level course is very, very different from the 101 course. There was not a good alignment, and I think there are just some questions when there's, again, not a good monitoring system, that you have high school teachers teaching the college courses, and then the kids go to college and you have college teachers teaching remediation to many of these students. So, when I speak to groups, I really push for AP because I know the validity is there and the quality of those courses are there if it is held to the standard. But what we are now doing in 2012, all of the policies that I talked about, the training, all of those are effective the year 2012, 2013, this incoming school year. But we are looking for a way to secure funding for all AP exams. We now do it for the free and reduced lunch students, but we're looking for a way to do this for all students, to just provide, to encourage them to take more courses and more exams, that we will include the AP goals and metric in our state board strategic educational plan, that we will continue to heighten the awareness and provide the information so more people are aware of the credit policies, and also continue to reward and recognize those programs around the state, the schools and the students, for the success that they are having. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. We want to provide you the opportunity to ask any one or all three panelists any questions that you may have. So if you would work your way toward the microphone. We have 10 minutes, I'm being told, for questions.
My name is Lee Denny from the state of Oklahoma. I'd like to ask Mr. Gubera or Dr. Gubera a question.
I profess many things, but I'm not a doctor.
Okay. You don't play one on TV. I really enjoyed your presentation, but I was wondering, do you incentivize these high schools to offer these AP classes? Because in our rural parts of our state, a lot of times either 0 to 2 are all that's offered. So how do you get around getting states to offer, or high schools to offer the AP classes?
Great question. And here's how the legislature did it. It's mandated. So every school in the state of Indiana has to offer 2 AP courses and two dual credit courses. So that's been in play for a while. The expectation's been there. Even as I started talking about as I'm pitching our new A through F model, and now it's in the school accountability, some folks push back on that. I said, well, you know, y'all supposed to have been offering this for about 5 to 7 years now. So this is not a surprise. So it's already been in place. The other incentive I mentioned is that we pay for the math and science exams, so that's it's cost effective there, yeah.
Thank you.
The other piece I wanted to mention, I neglected to put in there, there was a lot of noise coming out of me about all the stuff we're doing with AP, but I guess, you know, proof's in the pudding. So I do want to mention that over 2009 and 2010, the results of our program is that we've had the highest increase in AP participation in the country. And our Hispanic and African American community has blown everyone out of the water. And then the last data point I think is of most interest. So in Indiana, discussion has moved from not just access, which I think we're doing a darn good job at, but it needs to be success. And I know Gail mentioned that. You need to get that passing score for it to have much more weight. And so last year, 2010, we had the second highest increase in the country in the percentage of our graduates passing an AP exam. And when the 2011 results come in, if I was a betting man, I'd wager we're probably in the top 5 again.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Nathan Brinkman with a brand new education reform news service, choicemedia.tv. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on the relative merits of AP versus IB.
Who would
I
like
will
to-
just quickly say, and they certainly can add, that I think that there is great merit in the IB as well as the AP program. I don't see a difference there, and I truly believe the quality is there in both of those that really take our students to that competitive level where they need to be.
I would agree with that. It's, you know, everything points to IB being as robust as AP. I think what I'm looking for is a little bit more of the research that supports that. And I know the IB folks have told me that I think they've just completed a research study with all their IB schools in California. That's going to support that, so I'm anxious to look at that and read that. But all things point to that being a very robust program. We encourage all of our schools to also participate in IB if they can do it.
Our incentive program includes paying for the IB programs as well as rewarding campuses that have kids that have scored a 4 or higher. But for AP, we say 3 or higher. So again, maybe we'll see with the research what that bears. But I mean, honestly, one thing I did want to mention is our biggest challenge, which is what I should have mentioned in the beginning, is funding. I mean, that's this whole thing around college and career readiness is putting all these systems in support, putting all these support systems in play, whether it's AP programs, whether it's, again, a professional development programs or whatever. We've got to scale these now with no money. And I think that's something that we're really struggling with at the state level. And if I saw Epsilon here just a second ago, I guess spoke to you, and we have a major partnership with Epsilon and Project Share in Texas to provide professional development at a more cost-effective way.
Thanks. And I think this is our last question.
Good morning, I'm Matt Montano. I'm from the New Mexico Public Education Department. I recently, as of May 31st, was a principal of a high school, so I was very interested in how Mr. Gubera, you're incentivizing a fifth-year graduation without over-incentivizing it, without making principals, look for that as well.
You must work for our State Board of Education, too. That question came up at our board meeting in October. Yeah, you're right. It's a very difficult place to walk. In fact, at our October meeting with the State Board, where we thought they were going to move forward on the rulemaking process for our new A through F model, they sent us back to look at some numbers, and that's one of them. Basically, where's the right cut point for this? We don't want to over-incent it. That bonus grade on that, so is pretty muted compared to the other ones. So it's an extra bonus, but it's not overly weighted. So we're still trying to run the numbers and make sure we're not doing exactly what you mentioned. The other piece, though, is that the base grade is always based off your 4-year grad rate. And the base grade, as I call it, bases and bonuses, our base is always based off proficiency, and it's the driver for the grade. So if I'm a high school principal, if I can get from 79 to 80% of my 4-year grad rate, I just jumped up to a B. The fifth-year bonus is just something that's going to be on top of it. And it's really the idea, again, is to say, hey, we know for some of our schools that that's a population issue. We want you to incent them. Now, remember, those fifth-year graduates, right, they count against you when we do your base report. So they didn't graduate on time. So maybe if you got them to graduate on time, you'd be at a B already.
Thank you.
And I think we have one more quick question.
Do you have time for one more?
I think we will.
My question is that you mentioned that the percentage, or at least in the introductory comments, was that 30% of students are typically not ready for college when they go to college, and so have to take remediation courses. I wondered if you were able to determine if the programs you've implemented are affecting that percentage in terms of, are you seeing that your students are overall more ready for college when they get there, so that remediation rate is going down? I know that costs the state a lot of money.
If I could just respond real quick, I mean, that's our goal. I mean, that's why we are now in this implementation stage, starting with assessments that are actually going to have an indicator of college and career readiness. And if those kids meet that indicator for college and career ready, then the institution of higher education cannot require remediation. And so really it is a partnership between the two between the two systems to really make sure that these kids do achieve that goal. That's what we're banking everything on.
Well, and I will tell you that as you look across, and certainly, as Tom had said, the aligning of your entrance requirements of college and your exit requirements of high school is very critical. But again, in referring to like a program, like an AP program, students that have taken AP programs and exams and scored 3 or higher, their chance of success in college just shoots way up off the Richter scale, because they are doing that caliber of work. And certainly you hope then that so many students, I mean, college success rates are not really high right now. Of the students that enter college and those that graduate, there's a great discrepancy. So the more the more we raise the quality of those students graduating from high school, the greater the success rate is going to be, whether it's a 2-year, 4-year institution or a certificate program. The better ready our students are when they leave for career or college is what we're all, I think, here for.